Hey everyone, and happy 2021, and welcome to episode 16 of your favorite YouTube series, and mine as well, Not Another Demo. Hey, we are super excited to kick off the new year, talking with the folks from Snyk. We're going to talk to them about what that means. We're not sneaking into the new year. I have to always throw in like one dad joke thing because I can see Anthony's eyes rolling, even though he's not on the call with us today. But he likes to make fun of me about that, so I always add one. From Snyk, we have with us today Amanda Donahue, Natalie Hewitt, and Clinton Herget. So Clinton, I'm going to pass things over to you. You certainly can do a brief introduction of yourself and the team. The first question that I always like to ask as we go through these, because again, for those of you that haven't watched the first 15 episodes in 2020, where were you all that year? What we're trying to do with Not Another Demo is have real conversations with vendors about their products, about what they can do for organizations, cut through the marketing fluff and jargon, and really get down to the actual
Brass tacks.
That's a
I've
great
been
word.
wanting to say that for a while.
We finally got it in 16 episodes in. The brass tacks of what's going on. So a couple of ground rules all set for you guys. No marketing slang and no acronyms. If you use an acronym, we will probably ask you what that means. If we use an acronym, because we do live in an acronym happy world, you can also call us out on it as well, which gets to be kind of fun. Now, if there is a long, complex acronym and we clarify it once, we don't have to clarify it every time. You can go back to using the acronym because we know why we use them, but that's pretty much it. So with that, Clinton, I'll pass things over to you. Tell us a little bit about Snyk. Why would hey, it's 2021. We're looking at what we're going to do for the year. Our calendars have been full. We had a crazy year. Let's start with your introductions, and then why would someone want to spend an hour talking with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get things kicked off. I'm Clinton Herget. I'm a principal solutions engineer here at Snyk. That's a fancy way of saying my job is I get to talk to engineers all day long about making their lives easier. So I spent my entire career up to this point, and I never thought I would be an SE for a security company, by the way. I always thought that was the dark side. I'm used to being the guy on the other side of these conversations, kind of grilling the vendor about what they're doing. I spent 15 years as a web developer, DevOps engineer, cloud architect, team lead. And, I saw kind of the problems inherent in trying to have DevOps style velocity, trying to have agile sprints, develop applications in a cloud native way, but also bring security along for the ride. And what I saw in the value and what eventually brought me over to Snyk was the idea that you really have to reimagine security oriented around the developer in order to get, DevSecOps pipeline, I think, really working. And so our tagline here is we provide developer first cloud native application security. I can break that down a little bit, but fundamentally what it means is the software supply chain is different now than it was certainly 10, even 5 years ago. And security really needs to be brought along for the ride. And you see that in the way headcounts have changed. For example, back in the olden days in, 2005 or so, you might have seen 1 to 20, 1 to 50, security to developer headcounts. Now it's not at all unusual to see 1 to 500, right? 1 to 1,000. So the only way security can scale is if you put it in the developer's hands. And at the same time, software looks different, right? You don't have 100% first party code, everything invented here, building applications one line at a time, not reusing things. In order to get velocity, you need to have interchangeable parts. And so software today is more about assembly than it is about construction. You're pulling in open source libraries, you're pulling in container images, you're spinning stuff up in the cloud with infrastructure as code. And that means you need a security solution that focuses on those bits and pieces, but also one that works at the speed of contemporary development. So I think the question we would ask is, what do your developers think about your security solution? is it something they can use as part of their workflow? And how does it help them not just identify potential issues kind of as they're coding, but does it help them fix them? Like, does it result in more secure code being written and actually pushed into production? I think that's the problem that Snyk was created to solve.
All right, I'm going to jump right in.
This is your world, Aaron. So
it is my world. So a lot of let's define the parameters, right? Because I want to make sure I don't ask a question for a service that you guys don't offer. So let's look at the DevOps pipeline from beginning to end. What features do you offer at the different parts of the the CI/CD pipeline? Is it something to where you specialize in SAST? See, ready? You didn't. I almost did it myself. Static application coding, or sorry. Oh my gosh! Now I'm brain fading.
I was gonna say that's
static.
SAC. That does not sound like SAST.
Security testing.
Security testing.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
is it the DAST part, the dynamic application scanning tool? See, I almost broke my own rule. Is it the container image scanning? Like, what features do you offer? Because I want to make sure that I don't ask questions or talk about problems that most companies run into if you don't solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say up until really just a few months ago, Snyk was known primarily as an open source security company. That's where we got kind of our bread and butter. The acronym there, typically software component analysis, SCA or SCA can get thrown around. And that means basically looking at vulnerabilities that you're importing from the third-party libraries in your application, right? I declare a dependency. That library's got a bunch of dependencies. There's a whole universe of vulnerabilities I'm pulling in. I don't really have visibility into as a developer. So that was kind of our initial product. As Natalie was saying earlier, we're about 5 years old now, came to market in 2015 with a new way to do open source kind of component security for developers. The second product we added toward the end of 19? Yeah, we're in 21 now. Was the Snyk container product. So that is a container image scanning tool, but again, focus on the developer experience to allow engineers to make better decisions about kind of what's going in to those container images. The next logical step from there is, okay, I've got my application, I've picked my open source libraries, figured out how to package it into a container. Now I need to deploy it somewhere, right? Whether that's into a Kubernetes cluster, into some kind of a cloud environment. But the same developers are writing the configuration files that determine how that happens, right? So I've got a bunch of YAML files sitting alongside my Docker file, alongside my application, or maybe some Terraform and things like that that say, here's how you take this thing and actually get it running in production. So the third product we introduced is our Snyk infrastructure as code. And that basically looks at static analysis of those configuration files, again, within the developer experience, to point out, hey, here's where you've got an S3 bucket that's wide open to the world, right? Here's where you're not setting the right permissions, resource limits, and things like that. Then the fourth product, which I think we're set to kind of make the official announcement here in a couple of weeks, is that maybe more traditional static analysis of first-party code. The slide I would typically show here, I won't, but I'll kind of describe it, is the new software supply chain kind of is like an iceberg, right? Previously, you had first-party code as kind of the monolith, right? Everything written in-house. Whereas today, that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg. And then underneath the waterline, you've got the container image, the open source libraries, the infrastructure as code. But we were, until now, I think, missing that fourth piece, which is, what if my developer comes along and writes a SQL injection, right? Or writes a cross-site scripting attack. So we made an acquisition late last year of a company called Deep Code that is an AI-driven code quality engine. And we've now packaged that as a product called Snyk Code, which is our static analysis or SAST product. And we're really excited about the way, we think we're kind of reinventing how SAST has been done. Previously, it's been a very heavy process happening kind of at the end of the development cycle, really oriented toward, for SAST?
Because that's interesting. I've not heard SaaS. Again, this is an open-ended. This is not me calling you out. This is an open-ended question. Typically, SaaS happens at the beginning of the DevOps pipeline, when, at least in the stuff that I've traditionally done, is you pull in your libraries, that initial setup. Then you run your SAST after you've come up with your first feature set, right? You run that one, it comes through, it gives you your different alerts. You have to work with your security team usually to figure out what your false positives are, false negatives, stuff like that. Then you go to the next phase, and then you traditionally try and run a DAS tool to get that more advanced logic in there before you go to production. So is this just the way your solution works? Again, I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm trying to understand the workflow in my head. So how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is that if you look at the problems or the pain points with traditional SaaS solutions, it's really a couple things. First of all, is speed, right? Because they're looking at every line of that code, and typically we'll either be looking at bytecode, which is post, compilation, right? Or need to run an hours long process. What you don't get is the immediate feedback from the developer. You actually have to have that packaged up, pushed into some kind of pipeline, and then await the results that are kind of divorced from context that a developer actually needs in order to remediate. What we're trying to do with Snyk code is to bring all of that kind of into the immediate developer environment, inside the IDE, for example, inside the Git experience. Okay. One of our big philosophies is you kind of have to meet the developer where they're already at, because that's how you minimize the loop, the mean time to actually fix, to remediate, to get more secure code written.
So you're saying you're hoping to do it when they're compiling it on their local machine, as opposed to sending it. The traditional route is, you have like IBM App Scan, and, pick your SaaS tool, because you compile it, you send it there, then it's scanned, then you get your report, and then obviously you tweak it. If it meets certain thresholds, it can go on to the next step in the CI/CD pipeline. I just broke my own rule again. Wow. You can tell it's a new year. Continuous improvement, or continuous innovation, continuous delivery is CI/CD. Sorry, my bad.
See, those are horrible words to say together, though. That's why we have acronyms. But we just,
I know. Well,
yeah,
that, and
that's the purpose for them.
But
we have to explain
between
them, right? Because otherwise we just have alphabet soup for conversations. Yeah.
Sorry. So, and then it goes on its way. So I'd be interested to hear more, and, we don't have enough time today, and maybe, it's something we can do later on, but interested to know how do you take that horsepower that's needed, like you said, to be able to do that type of scan before it goes to like your security engineer to identify like false positives, right? Because ideally what happens is when you first set up your SaaS tool, right? You know this, when you first set it up, there's a lot of time it takes to fine tune it and get it to where it's only alerting on, real alerts, right? Because that's one of the biggest frustrations. And you're shaking your head because I know you know this. One of the biggest frustrations the dev has, right, is those false positives. I know what this is. I know why this is Aaron, but because of the rules, it's not allowed, security rules, it's not allowed to go on farther in the process. So I'm really interested to see, because it truly would make some developers happy, how you can mitigate those false positives, earlier in the process.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard a customer the other day as we're describing this. He says, "Oh yeah, static analysis. We call that false positives as a service." Right? And that's exactly the reputation it has, because these the rules have to be written kind of from scratch in a lot of these instances. And you're sort of left with the choice of, do I want speed? Do I want accuracy? Or do I just want to turn down, the rule set to such a point that I'm just letting a bunch of insecure stuff into production? So that's exactly the problem set. I think that we went out and found an engine and built a product around it to solve. I don't just want to say that's a bunch of machine learning magic, but honestly, the people who are working on that algorithm are a lot smarter than I am. One thing I will say, though, is it allows us to leverage our traditional strength, which has been in the software component analysis, the open source side of things. Because keep in mind, as software becomes more and more about assembly, it reduces the proportion of lines of code in your application that your developers are actually responsible for, right? And so maybe that was.
Don't say that out loud. You're going to mess up a lot of sprint commitments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think it's maybe 10% of the lines in your application are actually your first party code. One thing we can do is take advantage of the fact that, as Snyk, we have this really mature component analysis product where we can identify every bit of open source in your application. So first of all, we can limit the scan to just those lines because we already know about those vulnerabilities, right? Like that's a real fast process to say, we know what your dependency tree is. We have a really mature open source vulnerability database. We can match those up. Now we're just focusing on the lines that are net new, right? And then the engine, the AI engine that's designed around it basically has the entire corpus of open source code in the world to learn from. So we set that thing loose on, GitHub, for example, and we say, look at every SQL injection, that's ever been written into a public project, figure out what that looks like. Now figure out how it was remediated, right? What was the fix there? So that algorithm learns over time, and that's how we can sort of in real time, right within the IDE or within the PR check as your application's going into, to your GitHub, for example, say, hey, this looks like it might be a cross-site scripting. Here's what we tend to see is, the remediation for that. So we really do think it's a reimagining of what static analysis can be, both in terms of when it happens in your sort of SDLC in your pipeline, and how a developer can utilize it to actually make quicker and better decisions about the code they're writing.
So that's a good point, because a lot of times with developers, at least, with our development team, is they're allotted X amount of time. We have some nice development leaders, and they allot the developers, I can't remember if it was like 5% or 10%, similar to Google, and they have innovation days. And a lot of some of the great features that we've been able to do these last 5 years has stemmed from those innovation days. But the trade-off on those innovation days is they're going out and they're seeing something new on GitHub or somewhere else, and then they're pulling that code down to just to see how it works. Can it match up to our enterprise web services, our different APIs? And they're not, as much as we try and get them to be security champions, most time they're not thinking about security. It is what it is, right? They're not trying to be bad developers. It's just they're trying to move quickly with the time they have. So if you had the ability to scan some of that stuff even before it was compiled, that would save you time, right? Is hey, hey developer, you pulled that new, witchamajig, what do you call it? Whatever the latest hot thing is with web development, right? I'm not gonna lie, I've been out of it for over 6-7 years, so I can't even tell you what the latest hot thing is. They pull it down, they get it working, but if you could scan on that pull down, then to your point, then you're already starting with a pure or a safer code base before you even start integrating it into other things. So that's interesting. It doesn't sound like marketing fluff so far. I'd still have to see it in action, but so far, so good.
You couldn't do a demo. We'd love to show you, but not today.
not today, though. It's not another demo.
Right. So while I have two, Aaron and Clinton, both of you guys who are very familiar with this space, let's pull back maybe away from Snyk, but I think it's relevant, and just talk about like secure development, because I do hear these conversations a lot. And developing code is not new, security is not new, and yet I feel like the divide between security and development remains a chasm that I hear, like conversation after conversation after conversation about it. What I never seem to see is that divide changing. So can you guys, and I'm sure there's other people that have the same questions that I do out there. So can you talk like one, why is that divide? And two, like, what are the things that continue to seem to get in the way of that divide getting smaller? And then maybe you guys can talk a little bit about how Snyk can help maybe bridge that gap. You two want to grab that?
I'm happy to talk kind of from my experience. Yeah, I spent a long time as a web developer, wrote a lot of really insecure code in the earlier part of my career. And what I was faced with, I think, time and time again, is it's an issue really of context and what's important to those various groups, right? Like a CISO or a security professional cares about what is my risk level associated with this line of code, right? How can I quantify that? And ultimately, how can I prevent that from, from biting me, right? From actually making it into production? Like how big and high and strong of a gate can I set up? Whereas a developer's incentives are completely different, right? They care about velocity. They care about getting their sprints done on time, getting the release packaged up and going in. To the extent they care about security, they want to know, how can I fix this, right? How can I make it better? So when you take a report, and I use that kind of with the capital R, because I think up until maybe now, very recently, the artifact or the output of a security tool was this big PDF, right? It's designed for the CISO to say, what is the risk level of this application? They then take that report, 900 pages, right? Of completely inscrutable, auto-generated stuff generated by, by this tool, send it back to the development team and say, make this better. But that's totally separate from the context a developer actually needs to improve their application. And it's happening at the wrong time in the process. It's not when they're in their IDE making those decisions about what library do I use? What base image do I put in my Docker file? How do I, take this YAML file to deploy it and make it secure? So it's the combination of getting the right information at the right time to the developer, because ultimately they're the ones who are empowered to make the fix. The CISO can't change the line of code that's causing the issue, right? But also they don't know what's relevant to the developer because they don't have the context of that application. So I would say what you need, and again, to kind of bring it around to Snyk's philosophy, is you need the right information to the right people at the right time. And that makes everyone's job easier, right? I think the security people want more secure code. We all have the same goal, but to the extent that there's friction, it's because the messaging and the artifacts aren't really designed for the people whose job it is to make those security improvements. I don't know, Aaron, if that's kind of
so okay. So
right.
before he jumps in, so I want to add on to something that you said there, Clinton, because you said you made a comment right off the bat that you wrote a bunch of insecure code back in the day or whatever. So, because I do feel like sometimes we look at this issue from a security perspective and not from a development perspective. The developers that I know are some of the smartest human beings walking the face of the planet. I'm 100% sure that they're not trying to write insecure code. So is it and I'm asking because I don't know, is it the nature of the beast when you're under tight guide timelines to like just write code and it just so happens to be insecure? Are developers not being trained on how to write their code more secure from the start? Like what's the issue there? It's interesting.
It's both. And I'll give you a real world example, literally from 3 days ago in our insurance side's Pi Day, so process improvement, right? So our insurance wing of where I work, they've been doing agile development since before it was fad, before SAFe was even a thing. So they have a pretty mature model over there. They do a great job. But even as good as they do, there's still pressure from the marketing side, right? Like the digital transformation that's happened has just only whet the appetite of like your marketing teams and your marketing leadership. So now they want even more features, right? Because you have those Pi days, those process improve days, where you're mapping out what that development team's going to be doing over the next 3 months. And to be successful, your marketing team has to already have picked all the features that they would like, and then they talk about it and they size it and then they move on. What's happening is you're seeing even more pressure placed on the marketing teams because digital transformation, we're competing with everybody else. Now I need, instead of 5 features this period, we want you to get 6 in. So now the marketing team has to bring it back to the development team and say, hey, we now have, we want all of this. Let's size it. Let's figure out your velocity and do it. So there's more pressure on the developers. So when push comes to shove, if they have to meet a commitment and of getting it working and, meeting that sprint commitment to meet that Pi commitment, they're more inclined to make marketing happy than security happy. It's not because they don't want to make security happy. So on the other side of that, there's the training issue, right? Yeah. Because security is incompetent. Think about this. The business only has X amount of cash, right? So security has to compete for that cash, even against a marketing team, right? Secure code training costs money. Fortunately, we've done decent job of trying to provide developer secure code training, but there's never enough money. There's never enough money. There's never enough time, right? Because you have to be able to bake some time into that sprint commitment for them to be able to go take this new training module. So it's both.
So does it take longer and is it more complex to write secure code than to write code? Again, I'm asking I don't
Yes
know.
and no.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think the piece that I would add to what Aaron said is, so I'm a developer. I'm faced with those commitments from marketing. Right now, I have to do 6 features instead of 5. My incentive is to go out and find as many building blocks that I can put together to build a platform to do 80 to 90% of that feature and then write the rest, right?
Okay.
The problem though is I don't have visibility into the vulnerabilities that are already in that code that I'm now pulling from the outside world. And that's my open source libraries I'm depending on, what's going in my container image. If I've got, a JavaScript app I want to run in a container, I probably say something like from node latest, right? In my Docker file, install my app, I'm good to go. I have no idea what's actually in there, right? That particular image has got something like 950 vulnerabilities associated with it, but I don't have any tooling as a developer to know that.
Right.
So the incentives, I think, run against doing the due diligence of what's actually my chain of custody of this software, what's involved in the supply chain. And that's too much for security to worry about as well, right? Like these are developer decisions. We need to empower them to have the knowledge, again, at the right point in their decision-making process and with the context they need, not just to know, hey, this is problematic, it's adding a bunch of risk, but here's a better decision I can make.
Okay, so now I think this is good because now I feel like we're getting down.
The light bulb went on. Bing.
Well, so I think and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone were to be able to see, you gave them a blank canvas and said just write code, the developers are going to go okay, and they're probably going to write fairly secure code because the developers are smart people. But because a lot of this stuff is pre-built and we're pulling stuff from different places because the amount of code is too massive to just start from scratch and the timelines are too tight, we don't know exactly where all of this stuff is coming from. And so inherently there is probably some security risks. So see, what's good about is that yes? Because what's good about this is I feel like one of the reasons for the division between these two groups is, and this is an old security thing that's been going on, not just with developers, but across the board is, hey guys, you're not doing a good job. You're not being secure. And I'm 100% sure there's a lot of developers on the other end of this equation going, what are you talking about? I'm a great developer working my butt off to be providing secure as possible code. So now I think what's coming out of this conversation is the knowledge that there is just some inherent things in developing applications, websites, etc., that cause things to be insecure. So now we're not blaming each other. Now we're talking about how to try to work together. And I think that's something that security people, you looking at me, security people, you all need to learn because you've been blaming everybody for far too long. All right, good stuff.
So there is something you can do with that. It is really getting in to secure by design and getting earlier in the process. That's why I got excited.
Yeah.
You know me, I tend to not get overly excited about vendor products because I've been stung so many times, but I'm hopeful on that one because it does solve that problem, right? If the slate that I'm giving the developers to start from is already at least X amount of secure, then it should lead to more false positives. Because then the next step that we'll talk about, and we're still doing okay on time, because I got a bunch more questions for you, Glenn. we haven't even let Natalie have a chance to breathe yet. Is when we get to the DAS portion, right? So we've compiled that code, we have our SAS errors, we fixed our SAS errors. Now it's getting ready to go to to QA testing, everything else. DAST is kind of like the holy grail, and also what's a something that everybody talks about, but it's fake. Oh, I'm swinging and missing on analogies today, but basically, it's where you get to the end, you need to do that advanced scanning, right? This is where you actually have a business analyst or QA go in there and say, okay, for this type of insurance user, I need you to see if they have, if they have different things going on, right? Because it's one thing to, have your input scrubbed at the beginning, right? The basic secure coding stuff that you would learn in training. It's important later on to where you have that DAS tool, that dynamic tool that's scanning to see how a real attacker would attack it, right? Because there's a big difference between like a script kiddie, right? Looking for different SQL injection vulnerabilities and everything else. And then there's that human element, right? And this is where AI can't touch it yet, is I have a couple great pen testers that will go, hey, what if I took that same line and I just took and switched one number on it, right? Is this application going to give me somebody else's information, right? Because in the insurance industry, everybody's got a contract ID, right? One of the basic tests that you can do when it's dynamic is to see if I change these numbers a little bit, can I get that application to give me somebody else's information? That's the kind of functionality that can't happen in a SaaS tool. So does your product, and it's okay if it doesn't, do you have anything right now or in the pipeline that's going to address that part of the CIC pipeline?
So, I mean, short answer is no, we don't have a DAS tool currently. Wouldn't be surprised. We are trying to build a platform. We have a number of partners that kind of offer those solutions. What I will say is, I don't think I'm revealing anything too secret to say that developers hate DAS, right? Because the artifact that you get back is completely, first of all, it's for the CISO's consumption, right? It's all about risk, and it's from the outside of the application looking in. It's saying, here are the attacks that I tried to run, and here was the result of them. What that doesn't say to the developer is, now here's what you can do about that. So it's this huge kind of research burden to put on top. We're not saying DAST isn't important, right? I think what we are saying is, if you maximize your developer-focused tools, you can make your DAST function a lot better, because the signal to noise ratio all of a sudden is flipped on its head. What you're only seeing at that point is everything that wasn't caught by the static analysis, by the software component analysis, by the container image scan, et cetera. You're truly treating the application as, if it's being attacked from the outside. So you can be pretty sure that those positives you get are going to be real, and not something that was filtered out ahead of time. I think one of the, again, not to get too markety here, but one of the concepts that we focus on is securing what is built is not a scalable process, right? And that's what DAST is about. It's like, this thing is built, now let's see if it's secure. That's not a real-time situation. That's certainly not a developer workflow integration. What does scale, though, is building securely, and that's really what Snyk is focused on. So if we can enable developers to build securely, by all means, let's let the security folks run the DAST tool later on. And but I think that if DAST is your only form of security, then there's no way you're ever going to be able to scale, and certainly not at the speed of DevOps, right? It's much less about, we put together a release, now we throw it over the fence to security, we wait, we get the report back from the DAST tool, and then we remediate, right? It's much more this infinite process of, we're deploying every 5 minutes, right? We can't wait. We've got marketing on our backs. We need to hit these velocity numbers. We need security tools that secure the process of building rather than secure the artifact of it.
Yeah, because Matt, just to give you an idea of what those reports look like and how much DAS kind of messes with the traditional CI/CD pipeline, and it works wonderful. If you're not an agile shop, DAS works wonderfully, right? The two issues become those reports tie back to like CVSS scores, and that's an analogy that I don't know. I'm not a pen tester, so I can't do that description. Sorry, everybody that's watching.
I know what it is. I don't know what it stands for.
But it ties back to those scores, right? And that gives it the risk level that the then solution takes action on, right? Because you can fine tune it like Clint says, you can have a higher tolerance, right? Like mediums and lows go through the pipeline. If you get a high, stopped, gated production, you can't go to production until you remediate this issue. That's why those reports, for somebody that's a former developer and a security person, they make complete sense to me. But Clinton's right. For your average developer, they don't give a crap about CVSS scores and stuff like that. They want to know, okay, exactly what the problem is. What do I need to do? Oh, I need to do a second level of scrubbing on that input. So it's not just checking for a SQL injection, but am I trying to reuse somebody else's token, for example? Those are the successful alerts. So what you can do, and this is where I do hope they come up something like this, is you can target your scanning to just new functionality, right? And maybe that's something that a future Snyk product could do, right? Is if you can pull, the more you can pull at the beginning, where the developer can get those errors right at the beginning, then it doesn't mess with the CI/CD process, because some of those longer DAS scans, he's not lying, depending on how complicated your website is and how deep that logic is you have built, right? You literally could take hours to scan.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I've had
it's not the solution's
Days.
fault, right?
Yeah.
It's the complexity of the code that it's looking in. And if you have a really good QA analyst, they are already thinking like your pen tester, right? So that adds that much more time on. So that's why it's so important to try and do targeting scans. So sorry, Clinton.
Well, no, I was going to say I've had DAS tools take a week, 7 days from start to finish. And that's because all they know is this website or this app is a black box. I have to throw every permutation of every attack I know against every page I find, right? And then report the results. So again, yeah, we're not saying that's not valuable. What we are saying, that is useless within the developer workflow. What I want to know is, I'm about to make a commit. Is that build going to succeed? I need a yes or no answer. And so that's why we're trying to build tools that work in real time within the developer context, that then tell me whether security is going to put the red light on, once that actually heads through the pipeline. So to whatever extent we can do that and be agnostic about where we integrate, so for, again, not to get too far into the marketing, but one of our core philosophies is the worst way to get adoption of a security tool is, first of all, for security to buy it and then say to developers, here's how you have to change your workflow, right, to integrate it. You've got to now use Artifactory instead of Nexus. You now have to use GitHub instead of Bitbucket, right?
Yep.
We're really agnostic about that, because fundamentally you have to meet your developers where they're already at if you don't want your security tool to be shelfware. So we'll say, yeah, we have a command line, we've got an API, we've got Git integration, we've got CI/CD pipeline integration, we have production monitoring. You decide as a team, as a business unit, as an organization, where it makes sense to get that information, and then we'll kind of help you along. But like, ultimately, the minute we're saying, here's how you have to make your development process mirror the security tool, you've already lost the battle.
Yeah.
Natalie, sorry, we were in a roll.
Yeah, no,
you can jump in at any time. All right.
well, I mean, he's got all the knowledge here, but the only thing I wanted to mention on the JAS perspective is it is something that, from a Snyk perspective, we don't help with today, but we do have partnerships in place with the likes of like Rapid7, that if that is a requirement for a customer, it's definitely something that we can partner on.
Good partners of the Cloud Security Alliance as well. Rapid7.
So we're running up against it, Matt, but we still haven't even talked about container security yet.
I know.
I can help out with that one, Matt. Common vulnerability scoring system.
Yeah,
thank
Amanda
you.
just threw that in the chat, so thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I actually didn't. I know this sounds weird because I'm
like one of those ones, you know what it is, but then you don't know what it is.
Yep.
So yeah, well, I got a couple of questions that I have to get out just because we always kind of ask them. So we'll have to talk containers maybe another time, unless Clinton, you want to sneak. So you can do the politician thing when you're at the debate of don't really answer the question, but then answer the question you want to answer. So if you want to throw containers in there, that's totally fine. But
we don't have time.
And this can pull Natalie and Amanda in as well. So yeah, I am a big proponent of the pre-sales process being strong, but on top of that, the post-sales process also being strong. If I am in my role bringing an organization into a company that I work with, I want to know that if they do acquire product, whatever it may be, that 2, 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, they're still going to be happy with that. So can you guys walk us through a little bit of what the pre-sales and like proof of concept process looks like, but then also talk a little bit about what you guys do from a post-sales process in staying engaged with your customers and ensuring that they're getting the most out of the solution.
Sure, I can take that or start off. So from a pre-sales engagement perspective, first, I think it's notable to mention we have a free version that anyone can use. We have over 1 million developers using the free version. So a good way to get your toes wet with Snyk is to trying that out. And a lot of times we'll have developers that will just use that, and maybe they're using it for side projects and things that they're working on, like outside of their enterprise type, like 9-to-5 responsibilities. So that's there for people. But from a enterprise proof of concept perspective, we'll get you set up with a trial. Those integration points that Clinton mentioned are really important, making sure that we're meeting the developers where they are, understanding, what integrations are going to be most important and most valuable, and making sure that we are, in their day-to-day and going to be the tool that, they're actually going to use and they're going to enjoy using, and it's not going to be as much friction as those traditional like SaaS tools or SEA tools that we talked about. From a post-sales engagement perspective, we try to be like as in the trenches as possible. And one of the things that, compared to some of the companies I've worked at in the past, that's unique is that, we're starting to, we heavily utilize, like, again, meeting people where they are. If they are Slack customers, for example, we'll have a shared Slack channel where you don't have to go through a salesperson to get to a technical resource. They're right there a Slack message away. So more like on-demand type style support. And, typical to any like engagement, we'll have like, weekly check-ins, bi-weekly check-ins, whatever is most appropriate for the end customer. But really want to be there, want to be as supportive as possible, and then let you guys know what's coming so that looking at your roadmap and your projects for the year. If, we talked a lot about like the SCA type of things today, but if containers is coming down the road, like what can we do to help out on other projects and priorities as well?
So you mentioned like the Slack channel. What about if let's say I'm a developer and I want to know more about how to use something or a special thing? Is there also like a group of people? Is there a collective? Do I just reach out? How do that like ongoing training or questions type of thing? Is that a part of that as well?
Yep, we have like a knowledge base that has a lot of that information. We also do one thing that's actually pretty unique from a customer support and success perspective is we have a developer relations team on our side that, I don't know, Clinton, if you want to speak to a little bit more, but they'll actually set up, we call them stranger danger sessions, and we'll kind of take developers through a live hack. And it's a really totally meant for education from a development perspective, like looking at, how is an attacker going to utilize these vulnerabilities that we're trying to fix. And they're really super awesome, fun sessions, and we get a lot of positive feedback on that. So we're working to roll out that program like in a more scalable manner, but we definitely try to do that as much as possible with the accounts that we're bringing on.
The other thing I'll quickly mention to piggyback onto Natalie, we have a customer success team that is incredibly hands-on in the deployment and making sure that the client is onboarded and those continuous touch points. So that organization is really critical in ensuring that we're maintaining contact with the customer on a regular, ongoing basis. And should they be having any difficulties, questions, or whatever, that's they've got a direct line into that team as well. So that's been tremendous in helping Snyk grow and expand in the 5 years that we've been established.
I think the post-sales process is the most important part of the entire sales process, and sadly and unfortunately too often overlooked. So glad to hear that you guys are doing well there. So Aaron, we learned some stuff today. I learned some stuff today.
We learned some stuff today?
Yeah.
I guess I did. Sorry, I did. A common vulnerability, something.
something.
It's more like well you got to learn a lot today.
We learned that developers are good people. And
as a former developer, I know I'm a good person. I'm just a little squirrely. That's all.
I learned a little bit that it's not that developers are out there writing bad code. It's that it's a very complex world in which they live, and just kind of inherently some stuff happens, and we need to provide them as security people. Instead of constantly squashing their dreams and their egos, we need to provide them with the right tools and solutions to be able to allow them to do the job that we're paying them to do while maintaining a level
9
of
out of 10
security that our
developers
organizations
want to do the right thing. You'll still always have those, those renegades, but 9 out of 10 in the 15 plus years I have contact with developers, 9 out of 10 times they want to do the right thing.
Yeah, the code is their baby.
Which probably cries in the middle of the night, which is why they never sleep, because they're developers and they're babies. No, the code is the babies, right? We should stop now before I go off the
Good call, because we're up against it.
So if you are out there and you're trying to figure out how to develop better code, how to empower your development team to have more secure code, please take a look at what Snyk is doing, and check them out. We fully believe that we are bringing you always every week valuable vendors for you to look at, and we can always tell by the length of the conversation how well we like what's going on here. So the fact that we're running long on this one tells you something. So Natalie, Amanda, Clinton, I really appreciate your time. For those of you that are watching this, hey, thanks for sticking around through the whole thing. Be sure to like, subscribe, all of that sort of fun YouTube stuff, and we will see you again next week for episode 17. Thanks, everyone.